The recording has started. Welcome to another edition of What Good is a Song, the Friday Night Drum. Thank you all for joining us. We have a very, very, very special conversation that we're about to dive into. Yes, I know we always have special conversations. I say that every Friday, actually. But this time, it's different. Special. We are in the midst of royalty. And I'm not talking about something that's going on in Europe. I'm talking about straight from our motherland, Africa. Yes, we weren't kings and queens in the past. We are kings and queens today. And we are in the midst of a queen mother, Her Royal Majesty of the African Diaspora, Dr. Dowoti Desir. Welcome. Thank you for inviting us. And thank you for joining us in the Friday Night Drum.
Well, I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me here as your guest. But let us start as we do in our homeland. I say honor and you say?
Respect.
Honor, respect. Parole dit, parole fait.
So, first and foremost, what would you like to tell the listeners of this program, who are people of African descent from all over the world, predominantly coming from a diaspora experience, now that you have this opportunity on this program, which has been airing for 36 years now, on a radio station that is celebrating its 50th year.
Fantastic.
Yes, and we are very happy to be able to do that without being controlled by corporate interests. We are in service to the community, and so this is an opportunity to speak directly to that community without having to worry about being filtered by the conglomerates of the world. These are your people that you're speaking directly to.
I would tell our people that we are loved. That we are loved. We are loved. And we need to love ourselves. We need to honor ourselves. We need to respect ourselves. And we deserve and should receive the same from everyone else. We are the first mothers, the first fathers, the first scientists, the first humanitarians, the first kings, the first queens, the first farmers, the first everything. And no one should ever lose sight of that. It's imperative that we walk with that knowledge and with the sense of the dignity that accompanies that. Striving for our liberation, our self-sufficiency, independence, are goals that we've had politically in this country or in the diaspora as a whole. It's a battle that we've been engaged in, I hate to say, for centuries. And la lucha continua. But every single one of us has a gift. Every single one of us has something to bring to the table. And we must bring those talents, those gifts, that vision that we have for unity, for strength, for our liberation in whatever way we can. Whether it's you use your voice, you use your body as a performance, a tool of performance, you use your mind, whatever resources that we have to continue this process of liberating ourselves, our minds, our spirits, our bodies, because we're in a constant state of attack. And it isn't just outsiders who are attacking us. We ourselves, unfortunately, are still in many ways self-colonized. We've internalized a lot of racism, of Afrophobic dispositions, and we need to liberate ourselves. And so this radio station and the program that you are engaged in and the work that my host, Prince Dynast Amir, is doing is all about that step, those movements towards self-empowerment and liberation that we seek.
So my question now is, for a people who are in the midst of colonization, some people in urban areas talk about gentrification.
Yes.
But when they break it down, the tools of gentrification are identical to the tools of colonization.
Yeah.
How do we then start to struggle in our own time to break the holds of colonization that, of course, outsiders have on us, but also the ones that you talked about that we have on ourselves?
Yeah.
How do we begin to take those steps?
Yeah, I think there's a series of exercises that we all need to indulge in that will reaffirm who we are. That we look in the mirror every day and say, "Oh, girl, you looking fly," or "Boy, you the man." And you have to believe that. You have to see yourself reflected in a space of power, of goodness, of abundance in the world. You have to feel good about you first and foremost. Because once I'm able to love myself fully, I don't have any problem loving you. None whatsoever. And love really is a critical tool for change, because it's that openness to love, the kind of surrender that we have to it that allows us to build trust. And it is starting with trust, using trust as a tool to come together, to have a shared vision that's going to allow us to realize some of the things that we need to. I lived in a community that got gentrified in Harlem. It was so bad I had to leave. When I saw a young woman of European descent jogging down my block, a residential neighborhood, in her bikini with her headphones on, I said, I think it's time for me to leave, because this is not why I left Haiti to come here to the U.S. and take my child and my family to live in a neighborhood that reflected the values of people of African descent. To see somebody completely indifferent to that in my neighborhood. And I see this tremendous change going on here in Atlanta. It's been happening for a while, but it seems as if things have gone up to another level. In the Caribbean and in Africa, there's a notion of a susu, where people take their resources, they take their monies, and they put them together and they grow them. We need to be able to do the same thing, but we can't take that precious resource, and I put that in quotations, that is money. Those commodities, we can't put them together if we don't trust each other. We essentially need to create, the principle of a kombit, where funds of a community are pooled together and used to build specific projects. We need to be able to do that so that we can buy the land, we can buy the houses, we can buy the properties that we desire in our own neighborhoods. We can secure them and we can build. That's the only way to stop this process of gentrification.
Thank you for that, because I see some of our people holding firm to that, and I think the West End of Atlanta is a good example of the attempt by our people to at least hold on to some portion of historical land and territory and history and community.
Yeah.
And so that's a shout out to everybody who listens to our program from the West End, on the west side of Atlanta. Continue to do what you do and continue to be conscious of who you are and where you are. Now, your story, to me at least, is a big piece of the modern day combat of colonization. Because when people speak about colonization, inevitably they go back to the past. But a lot of the things that we talk about, at least in my experience, are things that we're no longer barred from. We talk about the way that we lost our languages, for example. You can learn Plenty of languages these days.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are free as far as like apps and things like that,
That's
that you can
very
communicate with
true.
people across the globe in real time and then learn by a dictionary and go to classes and things like that. And so we have access to a lot of things that our ancestors did not have access to,
Mm-hmm.
including the continent of Africa. You mentioned coming from Haiti
Mm-hmm.
into Harlem,
Mm-hmm.
and now you come back to the diaspora and all of your royalty that it still exists in Africa,
Yeah.
and is there for us. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yes, it's a long and complicated journey. um, you know, I guess a piece of it started with my great grandmother who left the kingdom of Dahomey and was, I don't know by what means or by what reason, but it had to be a very powerful one. I believe she left on the same ship that the King Belzin, who was the last king of Dahomey, he was forced into exile. He ultimately ended up in Martinique, but I understand that that ship made a stop in Haiti. And she arrived in Haiti decades after her independence, right? Um, so it was in the 1890s. She was the first one when I was about 3 years old who told me I was the 11th generation of my family, that I come from Dahomey. This is where our family is from. And she talked to me about the trials and tribulations of three kings whose names I never forgot. Uh, Gezo, Gledle, and Berzin. Those names stayed with me throughout my adulthood. Um, I didn't move too quickly to go explore what this would mean because I knew whatever was waiting for me, I wasn't ready for it. And in my and I was already a wise woman at my at my tender age because believe you me, I was quite ready for the things that I encountered in Benin Republic, which is the former kingdom of Dahomey. There are issues of patriarchy. There are issues of not people not quite knowing their own history in Benin Republic. There are concerns where on this side of the diaspora we don't necessarily know our histories either, and so I'm acting as a bridge, trying to fill in those gaps. The position that I have as the Queen Mother of the African diaspora is historically a new one. I'm the first of her name. I'm the first of Queen Mother of the African diaspora on the African continent. The plan is to have more, and this is important. Why? Because there is a space that has been created for us that recognizes a number of things. That includes royals, warriors, and other notable people in African West African society that found themselves often, well, also forcibly taken into captivity. There were people like Toussaint Louverture's father or grandfather, who was a prince of Benin. He came voluntarily to Haiti. Guess what happened to him? The moment he hit the soil of Saint Domingue back then, he was put in chains. But there are a whole slew of nobles and royals who from Colombia, South America, and the Palenques to the Americas, North America, who were involved in liberation movements, who led them, and we don't know their history. We have to know their history. We here, the diaspora, have to know them, and then on the other side, they have to know, because there's also this sense of, oh, this person was a slave, say esclave lié.
Yeah.
You know, not enslaved, but they're slaves. End of conversation. No, we were enslaved. And that speaks to the nature of resistance that was put up. that speaks to the fact that ultimately, if you were enslaved, you can undo that too, which is exactly what was done in Haiti. Haiti was founded not as a republic, as so many of us have been taught, but as a free empire. And Jean-Jacques Dessalines, while he was ridiculed in his day for establishing an empire, his vision of an empire is such a radical one. It's such a futuristic one. And I see myself following in that tradition. Because it is not an empire that speaks to occupation and taking over other people's lands, annexing their sensibilities and their ways of being in the world, but it was about creating a space of freedom where any person of African descent, the moment they hit Haitian soil, the free empire of Haiti, they were free. Even non-Africans were able to arrive in our space, in Haiti, as free people, so long as they were committed to abolishing enslavement. So we were the only truly free state anywhere, because the Europeans still had their systems of servitude, of serfdom, of enslavement. Certainly North America, the United States did, but our notion of freedom in the free empire of Haiti was I hate using the word pure, but it was the purest one. It was the one that really spoke to our liberation and our intention to stay free. That's why Dessalines also made sure there were a number of fortresses built all over the island. The best known one, of course, is the Cité de la Ferrière. And while everybody likes to say, "Oh, it was King Henri Christophe who built it," yeah, you were charged with doing that, but it wasn't your vision. It was Dessalines' vision, and the radicalness and the beauty of that, the determination that Dessalines has. European history has made a point of silencing that, but we need to unearth that and tap into that space of power and change. And what I'm here to do in Atlanta is about planting that seed. And I'm here to plant that seed with a project that I launched in Benin earlier this year. I founded the Imperial Corps Agoje of the African Diaspora. The Agoje, many of you now know as a result of A Woman King, but also the Dora Malai, I believe, in Black Panther. These women were not fictitious. They were legendary warriors, and they were the fiercest warriors on the African continent. And now we know a little bit about who they are as a result of these films. And there was a lot of controversy, particularly around the Woman King, saying, "Oh, these women, they were savages, they did this, they did that, they're terrible." But that's only one part of the story, because those same women were about 30% of the Haitian army. Those same women trained our leaders. Those same women were a source of inspiration for Nani, for Harriet Tubman, for Tingo Fuerta in Dominican Republic later on. These women, their legacy helped liberate us. And that needs to be embraced. You know, we can't have this image of Aunt Jemima unless you're going to give her a machete. You know what I mean? We can't be Sapphire unless she's going to be like, was it Pam Grier in one of the coffee movies? What did she have under her tongue? A razor. You know, there is this notion of the divine feminine warrior that we, as women of African descent, really must examine. We need to tap into it. We need to have her manifest. And other people need to know, if you're going to mess with us, there's a group of sisters who are out there who are going to handle business. Because frankly, I personally believe, and we have the living historical example of the Haitian Revolution, where women like Senet Belair and Claire Rose and Abattoir Toya, who are Aboji themselves, these Dede, they liberated us. We know what the women in Dahomey did. So why can't we do that here? And so teaching something about this warrior culture, it isn't just about, it's about protecting us, but it's also about teaching us how to heal ourselves, because a good warrior doesn't destroy. A good warrior understands that war is a dangerous and difficult and ugly thing. It also necessitates acts of peace, acts of communion, acts of healing and rebuilding. We understand that. All of our warriors are healers as well. And so I want to uh, take advantage of the power that is already here in Atlanta. Some of it is dormant, some of it is bristling and engaging. There's some fantastic women here that I've already been meeting with, I will continue to meet with. And it's very much my hope that in March of next year, during Women's History Month, and during the last year of the International Decade for People of African Descent, which started in 2015, that a group of sisters, not only from Atlanta, but from elsewhere, will converge upon this place. And we will learn the songs, the prayers, the dances of the Agoje. We will learn about the divine feminine warrior. There will be visits to historical sites here. And there's an important component of giving back to community that will take place, because this is what we did in Benin earlier this year. And so I'm looking forward to doing that here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that history and for that perspective, because as you were speaking, I was thinking about Abaraya Toya in Haiti, and I'm glad that you mentioned her. And can you talk a little bit more, though, about her relationship? Because you mentioned Jean-Jacques Dessalines, our emperor, her relationship to him, so that the listeners who don't know any of this history, this is the first time they're hearing this, can understand just how our ancient kingdom of Dahomey and the Agoje influenced what it is that he did, and he established, at least led in Haiti, for us, and for us to continue, as you had mentioned, in the 21st century.
Well, this area of history is not my expertise, but what I do know is that when Jean-Jacques was a small child, my understanding was that his own mother was about to lose her life. And so she took him on, and she raised this child as if it was her own. And in some ways, it wasn't just that she saved his life, but he saved her life. Because imagine you're forced to leave your country. You're effectively in exile. Everything that you know and everything that you cherish, everything that you valued has been taken away. And there is a point, and I know this for a fact, when you find yourself alone someplace, you begin to wonder and question the value of your existence and what you're doing there. Jean-Jacques, this infant, gave Abadatoya a reason to exist, a reason to keep fighting. He helped heal her. And so she taught him everything that he knew. Everything that she knew in terms of hand-to-hand combat, in terms of thinking strategically in military terms, in terms of understanding how to use the land, the physical terrain, as a tool of warfare. And these knowledges that she shared are knowledges that she acquired in her training as an Agoje, because you enter the army quite young. And you learn all the tools of warfare, natural ones as well as I guess, other things that man-made products, guns and arms. But the land itself has the capacity to heal as well as to harm. You need to know how to use that, and that knowledge was used extensively in Haiti, where I think it's one of the most powerful examples of guerrilla warfare. Where a carapace was created. You know how mountainous our country is.
Yes.
You could literally fall off of a mountainside. But the illusion of land being extended, our African ancestors created this illusion that maybe a pathway was wider than it is. So when the French came chasing after them on their horses, they think they have, I don't know, let's say it's 10 feet to cross. Let's say it's 20 feet to cross. In fact, it was only 10. And so they would end up literally falling off the mountainside. What would be waiting for them below, besides the rocks, would be, if they were bamboo shoots, they would be filed down and they would find themselves impaled. Biological warfare was not the only thing that Europeans used to annihilate us. We learned to use it against them too. So the blankets that were filled with smallpox or other illness, those too were given to Europeans. It was an all-out war. We didn't have the same tools that they did. So we had to figure out another way of protecting ourselves, of using the terrain to help us win this war. Because let's face it, the enslavement of Africans, the Ma'afa, what other people know as the transatlantic slave trade, was intended to annihilate African descendants no matter where they were, whether in this country, Haiti, in Brazil. And we were often worked so viciously. In Haiti, we died within 5 years of our arrival on the country. So this notion of genocide, which is what was being committed against us, and I often think of the so-called transatlantic slave trade in captive Africans as a war, in one of the first world wars. From a military point of view, I saw us fighting back, by any means necessary, and using everything at our disposal to make sure that we remained alive. We here now in the 21st century, but in the 18th, 19th century, we were the vision of our ancestors. We were the most recent incarnation of them. And so it isn't just a matter of you're going to take me out and kill me. You're killing everybody who brought me here. It isn't just back then annihilating random groups of African individuals. You were killing off entire families, and with them their Lwa, their Voodoo, their Inkisi, their Orisha, all of the spiritual forces that accompanied them. Can you imagine that?
As you speak, I'm thinking of everything that our sisters, our mothers, our aunties, our grandmothers, that they're dealing with both in the diaspora and in Africa. We have so many young girls disappearing every day.
Yes.
In Atlanta and across the United States, unaccounted for and never found. We have high rates of human trafficking and sexual exploitation of our women. And in Africa, as we are in the throes of continuing to throw off colonization, and we see these coups trying to restructure governments across Africa, and these exploitation that happens for mineral resources in places like Democratic Republic of Congo, where what's often not talked about is what is happening to our sisters and our mothers in the center of Africa every single day. as Queen Mother of the African diaspora, why is it so significant for you to launch this mission to resurrect the Agoje and bring women into that warriorship, both spiritual and physical?
It's important for me to do this because I have to examine, why was I put in this situation? I certainly didn't go looking for this. I've been attacked in so many ways by so many people, spiritually, politically, in national newspapers in Benin. I don't have any resources, material or otherwise, to do what I'm doing, but I was given this title. I was given this position, and it is something that I know that comes from the Fa, from the Most High itself, and it comes from my ancestors. And so what am I going to do with that? I know something about my own history. I know who I am. I know what mattered to me, what I'm passionate about. So how am I going to take my passions? Because I'm also a priest, Mambo Dowoti, high priestess in Haitian Voodoo, and my name, Namikano Bumambo Gakwi Memefo, that is in their midst. In their midst, and they are us, the diaspora. There is a fierce priest with strong hands. And so what am I going to do with these strong hands? What am I going to do with my ferocity that way? It's there to protect. And while, I'm no spring chicken, I do have access to resources and people. I do have a certain body of knowledge that I can use and share to train people. I believe if the Agoje were as well equipped as the Europeans were, the African continent wouldn't be colonized as it is. I believe that if there is a new group of Agoje, of women warriors, just as we had in Haiti, Haiti wouldn't be occupied. We wouldn't have 1,000 Kenyan police officers being sent over to occupy our country. For me, this is a form of black on black crime that the UN and the United States and France and all those actors on the international stage, that they're perpetuating. How are you going to have Africans all the way on the other side of the continent? They're not even West Africans, they're East Africans, our brothers who have the proud history of the Mau Mau, an anti-colonial position. They're going to come and occupy us, who have us, that is as Haitians, Haitian Americans, but Haiti being in somehow the embodiment of what can and will happen to all the rest of us in the diaspora if there isn't a fight back. How are you going to take our brothers from overseas, come over and engage into a fight with us, who are fierce anti-colonialists? How are you going to do that? And so the squabble, this ugliness, this chaos that will ensue is going to do what to the notion of Pan-Africanism? What is it going to do politically, historically, philosophically, morally to us? We cannot be victims of this effective, it's like a proxy war. We can't be so blind as not to see what is going on and how it is going to, we're having sister nations effectively destroy each other. We already have enough one-on-one, black-on-black crime. We don't need to have this happen on a broader national, regional, continental level. We can't have that. And so for me, I think when there is this sense of we need to protect ourselves, sometimes we need to protect ourselves from ourselves, but that we know who we are and we value what we've got, that there have to be individuals with the right mindset available. I'm not saying we're literally going to pick up, arms and go to war that way, but we are truly involved in an ideological war. And even if it's just symbolically, the Agboje represent the pushback. The Agboje represent those people in our community who are social justice warriors who are going to fight back. Then that's where the battle will be. That is the theater of war that we're operating out of. But there is going to be pushback. We demonstrate. That's all good and well. But I think, I hate to say this, I think at some point we're going to have to do a little bit more than that.
Thank you. So I don't want to take up your entire evening. And for those who just happen to join us, please check out our archive so that you can listen to the entire conversation. But we've been having a conversation with Her Royal Majesty, Queen Mother of the African Diaspora, Dr. Dowoti Desir. And I would be remiss if I did not ask this question, because it's one of the key pieces that we experience in the diaspora in regard to modern day colonization, because we don't have physical chains on our hands every day. People are going and coming where they please in many spaces, compared to being locked on a plantation in the past. The spiritual aspect you had mentioned, and it looks like a religious colonization, where you talked about knowing who you are and your destiny through Fa, and being able to connect with ancestors, connect with our indigenous traditions in a way that still exists today for us, because our ancestors did an awesome job of preserving many of them in the diaspora. But many of our people, at least in my experience, shy away from all of those traditions that our ancestors preserved in favor of what white settler colonialists, racists have preserved for us to keep us enslaved.
Well, it's also, it isn't just what they preserved, it is what they undermined and destroyed, because even these Abrahamic faiths they have a Nubian, they have a Kemetic basis. And so they kind of wiped that memory out, reorganized things, changed names, lightened everything, and represented it as their traditions, and had us drink the metaphorical Kool-Aid that way, to a point where we are afraid of our own power, are afraid of our own ability to change things, where we doubt our own philosophies and sense of ethics and mores. We can't do that. Afrophobia, this internalized fear of the African person, of African culture, spirituality, sensibilities, we've taken that in just a little bit too deeply, to the point where we can't work forward. We can't move forward. And this is why I go back to learning to love yourselves and love yourself in all of your beauty, in all of your ugliness too. But we also have to learn to forgive ourselves. But we cannot be afraid to examine, to question, and to let go of things, especially things that are no longer serving us, things that have not, ways of thinking and sensibilities that were never really intended to help us. We've got to be willing. This is one of the most beautiful things about being an African person, is the receptivity to the heavens, to the cosmos. We understand that it isn't just when we look up at the sky that we're looking at the heavens, but that the universe, when it looks down, it sees us. It sees itself embodied in us. And so the beauty that we see in the heavens is who we are. And we have to trust that relationship, that dynamic that is there. Heaven isn't a place that you die and you go to if you behaved yourself in life. No, you need to act right here, right now, at all times, because you are that beauty that is there. You are the physical embodiment of it. And I think the moment we can allow ourselves, even just for a few minutes, to do that, I want to encourage everybody to go outside Take a look at the sky, choose one of those stars, know that that is you. Know that that star was created just for you. And that it too is looking down and blowing kisses. Mi amor, mi corazón, chérie, God, bon amour, my love, I see you too. I see you too. I embrace you. I'm shining here just for you, honey. Know that, believe that, and walk with that strength and with that power. And when you see your brother and sister, know that they too have a similar experience. And when groups of stars come together, they create a constellation, right? And constellations are the source for marvelous stories. So share those stories, exchange those knowledges that you have, because those stars too are your ancestors. And this spiritual component, I think, is far more loving and forgiving and enabling us to come together and grow together than this punitive, apocalyptic vision of the world that seeks to destroy and see an end to life before you can be what? Resurrected? For who? No. I want my heaven here and now. I'm going to make my heaven here and now, not only for myself, for my family, but for you. And it is my expectation and my hope and my trust in you that you will be doing the same thing. This is why we begin our conversations with honor and respect. It is those two words embody very important African philosophies that speak to Ubuntu, that I am before you because you are, that my humanity is defined by you, that speaks to the notion of Mun, your people, my people, the experiences that our people have and how that shapes us, to the concept of Iwopele, being bien élevé, well-trained, well-formulated people, people being Burkinabe, upright people, people who are connected to heaven, to earth, who channel those energies. You've got to walk with that knowledge. They don't teach you that in the Bible or the Quran or anything else. These are African sensibilities that were deliberately wiped away from our memories, or deliberately vilified so that we can find ourselves in spaces of disempowerment and uncertainty. We can't have that.
Thank you. Now, before we conclude, for all those who have been listening and tuning in, and they want to continue this journey back home and reconnect to some of the things that you have offered to the diaspora in your capacity, where do they go? How do they reach out and make those connections real?
Well, you can go there, or they can go to my website, and there are emails that will that they can connect with there, and even text me. So we would go to www.queenmotherdowoti, and my last name, or my name, is spelled Dowoti. So Queen Mother Dowoti, all is one word, .org. And you can connect with me there. I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Well, once again, for everyone who's listening and for everyone who is connected with us in spirit, we have been having a profound and special conversation with Her Royal Majesty, Queen Mother of the African Diaspora, Dr. Dowoti Desir. Thank you again for joining us in the Friday Night Circle.
Thank you, Kweku.
Merci en pile pour tout le temps.
Merci, vous-même. Merci en pile.
And we'll move forward. Stay tuned, everyone, and continue to walk with us.
Aye, Bobo.
Aye, Bobo.
Aye, Bobo.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you so much for the honor.
That was my great pleasure. I'm thrilled.
And now we'll...
Yeah, so people are probably hungry. We should probably get out there. And, yeah. Let's do it, because I'm hungry too. I look forward to meeting the folks who have shown up. So did Zainab do whatever announcement that she said she was going to do. I guess she has. Oh, I wanted a picture with the two of us. Actually, I wanted it.
Where would you like to stand?
Well, why don't we sit down like we were reporting? Take a snapshot. You'll give me a shot.
Okay. How would you like me to stand? One second.
Say cheese.
Cheese.
Yeah. All right, one more. Okay, here we go. Say cheese.
Cheese.
Thank you, guys. And Mr. P. Huey. I got a picture with Dinah's too.
Yeah,
So
we
don't forget. I thought you were going to be your princely guard of Dinah's.
Oh,
Oh,
Wonderful, beautiful.
thank you.
Landscape. There you go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Lovely.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.